Is that the biggest fear that you have when it comes to artificial intelligence?
There will be some that I would say almost get lost in the machine. In other words,
Which careers would you say steer clear of that one?
some people think it's going to be blue collar. Some people think it's going to be white collar. What I like to focus the students on.
Doesn't AI just suck up all the creative jobs? What's going to happen to creators in this new AI world?
Rather than try to predict an unknown future that none of us know, I think that we can rely on.
The promise in the past was go to university, get a good job, buy a house, you'll be okay. College graduate unemployment rate is nearing 10% right now. Should we be even sending kids to college right now?
Although that's been commoditized because you have the smartest tutor in your pocket at any moment, any time.
I don't know if that's going to work. I think you're going to have a lot of very, very angry, upset, depressed young men without that adventurous spirit and without a purpose through job.
We think that if we acquire something, it will help us feel better. It might for a moment, but really the answers that we're looking for.
All right, boys, we've got Jeff Burningham, author of The Last Book Written by a Human, Becoming Wise in the Age of AI. And the reason we want to pay attention to Jeff, guys, is he's not just any rando. He is the creator of Peak Capital Partners and Peak Ventures. It's a multi-billion-dollar investment platform. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Good to be here, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Jeff, it's great to have you here. Jeff, I'm concerned. I'm concerned that AI is going to replace all of us. This year we had over 1 million layoffs, and one of the most frequently cited reasons for layoffs was AI. Is that the biggest fear that you have when it comes to artificial intelligence, mass layoffs, no one can find jobs, UBI? Is that the thing we should be afraid of?
I think so. I mean, if you say that's the biggest fear, I think the biggest fear is whatever swath of humanity, hopefully there's none, but there will be some, that I would say almost get quote unquote lost in the machine, if that makes sense, Mark. In other words, they're living a digital life or living in some sort of digital reality that is not real. They become disembodied. And so that would be my biggest concern. My two most pressing concerns, kind of in order. Number one, disinformation, of course. It's really hard, becoming harder to know, what came from a human, what came from a machine. I think we're going to get really good at kind of figuring that out. Whatever's produced by AI is almost too perfect. It's flat. It misses some of the messiness of humanity. And I believe that AI is a cosmic mirror to humanity, and that I hope it returns us to the beauty of being human. And that is part of the mess. So that's challenge number one. Challenge number two, definitely job loss. I ran for governor in the state of Utah. One of the things that I learned when I ran for governor is that the biggest leading indicator of civil unrest is unemployment of males between 18 and 40 years old. So, and I think that there is pain to come in that regard. Obviously there will be job displacement and job change. I talk about in The Last Book Written by a Human, I talk about how AI is a crucible for humanity to pass through together. And the reason I bring that up now is to say, this is part of the crucible. What's real? What's not? What do we do when a machine is better at doing so much of what we as humans have been doing? So these are existential questions that we're certainly going to have to grapple. And yeah, am I concerned? Absolutely. That's why I wrote this weird book. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur and I never thought about writing a book, but this book just kind of came through me, felt like it had to be written, and I wrote it.
What careers do you think are most at risk from AI? If your kids think about going into college, thinking I'm going to go into this career, which careers would you say, steer clear of that one?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've taught entrepreneurship as an adjunct professor to thousands of students since the governor race. I ran for governor in 2020 during the pandemic at the university right down the street from me, BYU. And there's a lot of talk about this, right? Rather than maybe, some people think it's going to be blue collar, some people think it's going to be white collar, et cetera, et cetera. Rather than talk about maybe industries or jobs, what I like to focus the students on, because that's like just a prediction. I don't like making unnecessary predictions. Here are some things that here are some skills that will never go out of style. Number one, connecting to humans. Having this conversation, Mark. In other words, soft communication skills, connecting heart to heart, eyeball to eyeball, feeling into each other. So these soft human skills will never go out of style. Number one. Number two, art and creativity. Obviously AI is getting better and better at mimicking art, doing images, etc. But there is something about the artistic process that is both transformative to us as individuals and to the collective human body, but also something that resonates deeply inside of us. So I think that everyone has a book or a podcast or whatever inside of them. And as our machines get more and more efficient, as they get better at doing so much of what we may be used to doing, it actually gives us more time to lean into our being. We are human beings, after all, not human doings. And so I think anything that allows us to be present and lean into that being, real human, authentic connection, number one. And then number two, leaning into art that speaks to us, that is unique to us, and that can resonate and help transform other humans. There's two areas or thoughts or ideas that I would give the audience.
The idea of human creativity, I think, is very interesting to me, Jeff. You're probably aware OpenAI just signed $1 billion deal with Disney. And historically, you need a huge studio, lots of people to create all this creative work. But nowadays, it looks like Disney is making a huge play towards user-generated content, specifically relying on AI. Don't you feel like, and by the way, a lot of these big creative unions, Josh Gordon-Levitt just came out creating an organization for creators and creatives. Doesn't AI just suck up all the creative jobs where you maybe needed 100 people in a studio, now you need 5? What's going to happen to creators in this new AI world?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And let me just say that the future is unknown. The future is a fiction, actually, Mark. It only exists in our mind. And we only get to the future in every present moment. So again, rather than try to predict an unknown future that none of us know, I think that we can rely on some bedrock principles, some of which I have spoken about. And one of those is, I think human creation will always have an audience, will always have a market. Now, what you said is very true, but this is true for every industry. Are all industries or most industries going to be disrupted? Absolutely. Will the way that we work be different? Absolutely. Again, as I taught these thousands of entrepreneurial students at BYU, there was a big discussion within the business school. Do we let AI into the classroom? Do we not? And at first it was out, out, out. I was an advocate for saying, no, we need to bring it in. We can't put our heads in the sand. We can't pretend that AI isn't happening. AI is going to happen and is happening. So it's up to us as humans to pivot in the way that we work. So I don't know, industries are going to be massively disrupted. A lot of creative jobs and other jobs will be learning to work with AI as a companion. I think that will be a new skill that will be critical in the days to come in almost every industry. But let me just say, do I have concerns? Hell yeah, I have concerns. I'm a human. I have 4 kids, this is why I wrote the book. However, the last book written by a human is the bull case for AI. It's kind of what we could create. What are the possibilities for humanity if we focused this technology on human flourishing? I think the outcomes could be fantastic. Is it going to be easy? No way. Is there going to be a lot of pain? Yeah, unfortunately, it feels like we as humans need pain to transform and evolve. And I think that is the ultimate purpose, actually, of AI, is to help us or to push us down this path of transformation and evolution.
You bring up an interesting point about it's difficult to predict the future. And one of the things that is pretty alarming to me is the way that education is being disrupted. Young college graduates, BYU graduates, having a hard time getting jobs right now.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we're seeing a lot of big CEOs, big companies saying is, well, we're kind of holding off on hiring new people. They're implementing a lot of AI into their workflows. One of the problems that college kids they are book smart, but not street smart. Pretty easy to replace that with AI at this point in the hands of the right person. And, as someone, I have 2 young kids as well. One of the things I think about is, should I even be sending my kids to university now? Should I even be sending my kids to college? Because the promise in the past was go to university, get a good job, get married, buy a house, you'll be okay. But housing costs are way up, and the college graduate unemployment rate is nearing 10% right now. Should we be even sending kids to college right now?
I mean, it's a great question. Again, I don't bullshit my students. I'm not going to BS you and your audience. One of the things that I said to them is the value of a traditional 4-year degree gets less and less every day, incrementally less value. That's a fact. Does that mean that college isn't worth it? As long as you pair, let's say, as you said it, the book smarts with some street smarts, I think it can still be worth it. I've built several large companies. One of my business partners I met in undergrad, actually at BYU. That's a relationship you could never replace. And there's been amazing value financially, thousands of jobs created because of this one relationship. So I think going to school or not is a very personal question. I have two of my children are at university right now, and one of them started a clothing company. He's an entrepreneur. You hear of this idea of like necessity entrepreneurship in emerging markets or countries. That's been a phrase that's been used a lot on several nonprofits that I've been on the board of over the last decade and two. Well, that quote unquote necessity entrepreneurship is coming more and more to America. Welcome to the future, where everyone is kind of an entrepreneur in their own right and fashion. So yeah, do we need book smarts? I think that's good, although that's been commoditized because you have the smartest tutor in your pocket at any moment, any time. It's kind of been like that for, a decade or more anyways, but that's increasing. However, again, AI can't feel empathy. It doesn't know what it's like to be in love. It doesn't know the pain of like loss. These are human traits. This is all part of the human condition. And that is something that AI cannot replicate. So however our up and coming students can foster those interpersonal skills, can foster this wisdom, whether that's at university or not, those are individual questions. I think it can still happen. But again, like I said, no doubt the value of a traditional 4-year degree gets less and less every day. Period. End of sentence.
Well, I definitely agree with this idea that we need to be less job focused, career focused, and more project focused. Like, what are the problems that I can solve right now? And I think that's not for everyone. Yeah. When I left my job to start my own businesses and all my different projects, my wife was terrified. She is not an entrepreneur. She wants the steady paycheck. She wants the W-2. She wants the health insurance. It's not for everyone. And this, again, is my concern. Not everybody has that adventurous spirit that you and I share. So I got to be honest, I don't know exactly what to do with all these people. And I think that the idea that's being floated out there more and more frequently is this idea of universal basic income. And I'm not necessarily opposed. I think Andrew Yang has kind of laid it out in probably the most articulate way that I've heard. However, there is a problem. Young men specifically, age 20 to 40, we find a lot of purpose in our work. So when you say, hey, you don't need to work, we're going to give you a handout, you're going to be all right. I don't know if that's going to work. I think you're going to have a lot of very, very angry, upset, depressed young men without that adventurous spirit and without a purpose through job. Wouldn't you say that that's a problem? How do we fix that?
Amen. I mean, it's a very big question. We need to go on a journey. We are on a journey. Maybe we redirect the adventure, Mark, a little bit. And I think that's what's happening here is that in an age of endless doing, we're being asked to return to our being. So the adventure comes in being. Now, this is different than it's in the air that we've breathed and grown up in, this doing, achieving. We are so used to looking for validation, for everything outside of us. We think that if we acquire something, it will help us feel better. It might for a moment, but really the answers that we're looking for, what all these young men, quote unquote, as you said, are looking for, the answers are actually inside of them. So I believe that AI hastens the call for humanity to lean into its heroic journey. Now, I know this sounds a little like esoteric and woo-woo, but the book is kind of like this. It's kind of weird. And again, I'm a guy who's built billion-dollar companies. I mean, like I have grown up like in the real world. I've been an entrepreneur through and through. I call this in the book the old game. And if we double and triple down this old game of greed, hate, division, the cosmic mirror of AI is going to reflect more of that to us. But if we pivot to a new game where the adventure is less out there, if you know what I'm saying, outside of us, and more, instead of being more inside of us, we're in trouble. I would say that the adventure is inside of each of us. So we need to retool our curriculum in schools. We need to be obviously very focused on what I call in the book conscious capitalism. And then again, based on my political background, having ran for governor in Utah in 2020, I talk about a new political movement. I call it the human political movement. These require paradigm shifts. But unlike AI, we can as humans, we can deprogram and reprogram ourselves. We're all programmed up. We all live our lives in very unconscious patterns, but we have the ability to go inside ourselves, to reprogram ourselves, and I think to focus and to thrive in the age of highly intelligent machines. That is the crux of the book. As our machines become more and more intelligent, we as humans must become more wise. And I wrote the book to be a conversation starter, to have conversations like this, Mark. You're asking the right questions. These are the right questions. We don't know the answers. We get to create them and figure them out, remember them, however you want to say, together as we go through, again, this crucible that is AI.
I mean, I love the idea, Jeff, but it doesn't seem to be that we're going through this crucible together right now. And if history tells us anything, people tend to make decisions less out of fear, or to make decisions more out of fear than out of hope. And I'll give you a perfect example. I know if I make a video that says the top 5 jobs that are screwed, that video is going to do much better than a video that says the top 5 jobs to get into in 2026. People are going to click on the thumbnail out of fear to figure out what's going on. And then they're going to be looking for someone to blame for that fear, whether it's a politician or a greedy corporation or H-1B visa holders or another country. I don't know a way that we get out of that. I would love to hear if you've thought through that, but I don't know how we get out of this idea of blaming others instead of looking within and improving ourselves.
Well, we get out of that very simply by modeling it ourselves, number one, by number 2, living in the present moment, and then number 3, by deprogramming and reprogramming ourselves. Like what you're saying is exactly right. Everyone knows that. Social media, the almighty algorithm, is hijacking our amygdalas. And is it making us happier? Is it making us better? Are we more divided than we've ever been? Are we more united? Can we be united? Can we sacrifice our tribal tendencies, our quote unquote tribal specialness, whether that's a favorite political party or religious tradition or gender, whatever it is? Can we sacrifice that on the altar of progress? I think we can. You talk about how we can't do it. I say bullshit. We can do it. We're not choosing to do it. It's not happening in mass right now. But if we don't choose that, the future is not going to be as bright as we hope it is for our children and grandchildren. So it's up to us. Again, this is the hero's journey, to lean into the unknown, to take, let's say, Mark, the road less traveled and see if it really makes all the difference. This is a tall task. Again, I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, this is easy, we can do it. I'm not stupid. I'm not naive. I am just saying, though, it is possible. Like, we can choose to do it. We can choose to change. We can be transformed and evolve our institutions. Again, this is the argument that I make in the last book written by a human. I do believe it's possible. It's not easy, but it is possible.
Well, I hope so. I mean, as a faith-driven man, I would say that we ain't getting there following the AI gods. It comes down to opening up your Bible and reading. That would be my stance. And it doesn't seem like there's a huge amount of love for that idea right now. It seems as science and AI and technology evolves, there's more movement away from traditional spiritual ideals.
Certainly. And I think that, the rise of the nuns, meaning no religion at all, has been the fastest growing religion over the last decade or so. There's been a little change in that just recently, and I can see why. When religions are caught up in the thick of thin things, when they've lost their kind of core or essence, we're going to estrange people. The book that I wrote is this weird spiritual mystical book. And there is a chapter about reforming religion in the book. And the question that I pose is that in an age of highly intelligent machines, when people are becoming more and more lost in their digital devices, what special belief or practice should really stand in the way of human community and connection? And I argue, as a fellow Christian myself, Mark, I argue that the radical innovation of Jesus was radical community and connection. Like, that's what he was teaching. Like, the more things change, the more they stayed the same. Here we are in 2025, trying to come back together, trying to be in community, trying to connect with other humans. That's where transformation occurs. It occurs in beautiful, intimate, messy, human relationship, not in a relationship with a chatbot. So yeah, we're coming back to ourselves. I believe that there will be a renaissance in consciousness over the next decade or so here in the world. And it's an exciting time. God is waking up to itself. It's remembering who it really is, why it's really here. And we get to be a part of this like unfolding evolutionary process.
Well, Jeff, I got to say, I like the optimism. Even my brother, he's getting baptized on Christmas Eve, and he's doing it, he's going way traditional in a Greek Orthodox church, which I think is interesting. I think, I know you're not huge on big predictions, but I predict, and this is what I tell followers who are very terrified of AI and it's replacing us all, is that I predict that as AI and digital and deep fakes and AI slop become more prevalent on the internet, there will be a resurgence of people saying, man, it actually felt good to touch grass and shake hands and to look a human in the eye. And that would be my bold prediction, for anyone who's thinking about starting a new business in the near future. If you're able to bridge humans together, I think that's going to be a booming business over the next decade.
Absolutely. In real life, human experiences, we need to lean into those, whether that's a faith tradition, a faith community, like you said, whether that's a running club or, whatever the case may be. We need to get people together to be in human community. And I totally agree. It will be a trend, no doubt. At least I hope it is. I talk about in the book 3 universal teachers. The body. There's so much that our bodies can teach us, and AI is not embodied. So let's return to the wisdom of the body, number 1. Number 2, in real life, human connections, like we were just talking about. Again, that's not something that AI can replicate. And then number 3, nature. We need to return to nature. Like Mother Earth has a grounding, static energy that when we're in the midst of it rejuvenates us. And nature is always trying to show us the reality of who we are and what really is. And so the more that we can be in nature, the better for us. And the real danger, I think, with AI is if humanity, I'm speaking generally, becomes disembodied, detached from these core things that make us human, then who knows what in the world can happen. That's where AI can take over in like a nefarious way, and the machine can, so to speak, control us and we can almost become a slave to the machine. If we stay embodied, if we stay connected to nature and to other people, we're going to make it. It's going to be okay. But that's going to take real work in, 2026 and going forward. And that's the work that's before us. I think we're built to do it, especially the rising generation, but it's an exciting challenge for us to face together.
Exciting challenge indeed. Guys, the book is the last book written by a human, Becoming Wise in the Age of AI. The guest is Jeff Burningham. And I will say that becoming a slave to the AI and the digital algorithm is a real thing. And it's going to lead to lots and lots of dissatisfaction. You might have seen it recently. You might have seen some people that are upset, dissatisfied.
You might have felt it. Yeah.
And this is interesting to me, Jeff, to reiterate your point. When I go online, when I go into X, that is what I feel. There's actually a good friend of mine, and I can't even follow him on social media because every day he's so upset with something that Trump did. Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, Trump does a lot of things. Some of the things I like, some things I don't like. Same as every politician. But when I talk to him in real life, great. We have good conversations. He's grounded. It's something about this digital world, guys. And I think the book and Jeff are going to help you escape that trap.
I hope so. Thanks for having me, Mark. It was great to talk. And like I said, I wrote the book to be a conversation starter. So I'd love people to check it out and then talk to me. I'm not hard to find on social media at Jeff Burningham. And the conversation begins. The heroic journey begins in earnest. We're leaning into that. And again, the good news is it's in that journey that we transform and evolve. And I think that's the potential for humanity.
Love that message, guys. Get the book at jeffburningham.com. Link in the description. Jeff, thanks for joining the show.
Yeah, Mark, it's good to be with you.